Kenjutsu wa laku no michi de wa nai. What is considered an easy technique for one student can be another student's kryptonite. No matter what is considered easy or difficult for each individual, through practical application and repetition, everyone eventually becomes proficient. Shinshoku giri, the vertical cut. I'd like to explain the various ways to execute one using a special guideline I'd like you to follow. Familiarize yourself with these cutting patterns so you can also execute extremely proficient vertical cuts. This guideline begins with 3 basic positions. I will call these the combative, the traditional, and the classical position. The combative position is a much tighter one where you're lifting it above the head in this manner about 90 degrees for a short shot or strike outwards in front. You see this cut used mostly in sports such as kendo. You lift the sword up and you start casting out this way, or you cast out this way. As you can see, if I keep my arm up straighter, I can hit the target in the head a little bit differently. If I bring the arm down, I can adjust it. Through these 3 basic positions, you can make and produce and execute many different cuts. The second cut is a traditional cut. It offers more power, more of a steadfast manner. So when I lift the sword up like this, and when I cut down from 180 degrees, I will create a lot of power. When I lift the sword up and I cast out, and what we call this traditional cut, it allows me to use the same cutting patterns as seen in many martial art katas. There are a lot of prearranged forms out there that use this cut. Nice, simple, and effective. The next cut is your classical cut. Your classical cut is brought up when your arms are above your head this way and the sword tip is pointed towards the rear. This will help you establish more of a balanced cut. So when you're cutting, you start finding out, or you start seeing that your body is fuller, it's taller, and more streamlined when it cuts. You start looking a little bit more like the ancient samurai did when they executed these classical cuts. Moreover, this classical cut is very easy to transition from one technique to the other. Therefore, we're going to use the classical cut and the transition mostly through this tutorial. Also in your guideline are focal points. After establishing your cuts, you need to put a direction to them, which is simple to do. Stand in the middle of a room and locate your 4 corners. After you've located these 4 corners, let's work on 2 corners first to establish a good rhythmic pattern. Draw the sword or the bokuto and begin to establish back and forth from one corner to the other these basic 3 cuts. So I come in here for a classical, bring it up for a combative, bring it up again for a traditional cut, and then another classical cut. I want you to go back and forth on both corners here until you become proficient moving into the target. After you've established your patterns and become proficient going back and forth to your first 2 corners, I want you to go to the second 2 corners and start moving around in a counterclockwise and a clockwise manner. The counterclockwise would be to come up and then on each corner lift up the sword, depending on if it's a traditional or classical or combative cut, and start moving around 180 to 360 degrees counterclockwise. When that becomes proficient and you're moving off your left foot, I want you to turn and go the opposite direction, still executing various cuts to the other and all 4 corners. When executing these cuts to the 4 corners, I want you to be consistent. This will create very strong patterns, but if your cuts aren't always consistent, you won't have the same cut every time. For example, when a lot of people take the sword and they start doing test cutting, such as Rokudan Giri or any of those cuts, one cut is good, the next cut just isn't quite up to par. And the reason why is your body isn't consistent with the sword. Here is a little thing to follow. Keep your forearms together, the sword close to your head, and cut down this way, bringing it around and then executing the opposite way in all directions. A lot of the time we have bad habits by wanting to pull the sword way up this way and bringing it down. It's good, it's strong, but every time you pull up this way, your arms move a little much and it just won't be consistent. If it was a firearm, you hit the bullseye one time, you miss the target the other time. This next cutting pattern might take a little bit of time. It isn't difficult, we're just not used to doing these types of turns. Before, when we came in, we went one direction or the other in a full circle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find our four corners that we've established in our room, and then we're going to cut down and turn 180 degrees this way and cut down again. Upon completion of the 180 degree turn, I'm going to turn back 90 degrees this way so I can make or execute another cut. Again, I'm going to turn counterclockwise 180 degrees so I can execute a vertical cut in this corner. Now I'm going to turn back 90 degrees and establish it this way. So over time, I'm going to be able to move in and out of the target area. If it's on my side, in my flank, or from the rear, I'll be able to turn, set up, and execute a cut much more easily. When you have become proficient executing cuts to these four corners, your muscle memory is set in, it is time to go on to the next cutting pattern. Stand in front of your room, or in your middle of your room, and look at your four corners. Now we're going to add the four walls, so now you have 8 directions to cut from. In Japanese, this is the beginning of Happogiri. I want you to look at the 8 basic corners now and see that if you turn right or left 360 degrees, either this way or this way, you'll start establishing a good strong cutting foundation. So when I take the sword and I cut here and I bring it up and I cut down the middle and I come over to this corner this way, or I come over to the wall, or I come over back over to the corner like this, and to the wall this way. I can start going this way, and then after I've become proficient leading with my left foot this way, now I'm going to go clockwise back with my right foot falling off my right lead this way until I become proficient. After my patterns are set into my rote memory, what you want to do is you want to establish the same type of reverse pattern you did with the 4s, but now go with the 8s. After you have familiarized yourself with these 8 cutting patterns and you've rotated to the right and left 360 degrees, now we want you to go into a reverse forward mode where I come into the target this way, I execute a cut, I turn 180 degrees and execute the same cut. I come back counterclockwise, not 180 degrees to face the target again, but 135 degrees, just like this, to establish a point. Now when I return back 180 degrees, I'm cutting in a new direction this way, and then come back and cut down, and then come back this way and cut down, and come back this way and cut down. And then you'll notice that I'm starting to go back and forth like one of those sprinklers that you see. They're called rainbirds, where it goes click, 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 and it goes back. Click, click, click this way. You'll start establishing some very good points this way. Of course, you'll be dizzy. It will take some time to get this established. But after you can effectively stand up, turn any direction with the sword, executing those 3 cuts, you will be very proficient When you have established these cuts and these patterns and practiced them over and over again, you'll start to notice how fluid your cuts become. And your Shinchoku Gidis, your vertical cuts, are actually vertical and you're set up for them every time. Take this on to the next level by practicing at a faster speed and better rhythm.